Hi everybody, welcome to Speedway Motors. My name's Tim. I love it when you can stop by and we can talk about some of the great parts that we have available to you, something that might help you out on your hot rod or project. Now, if you see me any day of the week, you know I love talking about what interests me, and that's history, old school, traditional hot rods, but more importantly, the engines that power these things. Old Oldsmobile engines, Buick nailheads, flatheads, early Hemis, you name it, it's right up my alley. My hands are kind of greasy today, you'll have to excuse me. I've actually been at the Museum of American Speed helping push some of those engines around. Holy cow, stuff from, from the turn of the century, old Miller engines and Offies, stuff that you just can't believe. Today I wanted to talk about an engine that I commonly neglect, and that's the Ford Y-Block engine. The Ford Y-Block is a pretty important engine, and it holds an important place in history because it's the engine that took the place of the flathead for Ford. Unfortunately, the Y-Block got a pretty bad rap, and it maybe doesn't get the credit that it really deserves. The reason is the small block Chevy came out in 1955, 1 year after the Ford overhead valve engine, and of course that would go on to make history and be very successful because of its benefits. But the Ford Y-Block, is a great engine too. And what I love seeing is this resurgence that's happening with the Ford Y-Block. More companies are making parts for them. More people are using them in their hot rods and other projects, and it's really great to see. I brought some of my favorite parts here today to talk about what we can offer to the folks out there that are building Y-Block Fords. Ford Y-Blocks were built from 1954 to 1964, and they would even go on through the 80s in South America powering some different vehicles. Ford Y-Blocks probably got a bad rap for a couple of their major drawbacks. Number one, which was kind of a good thing and a bad thing, was a really heavy industrial strength block. It had a really low skirted, heavy block. Not so great for racers, but made for a really strong bottom end. The really bad thing about the Y-Block, and what probably gave it the worst reputation, is its oiling system. It had an oil galley that went right from the oil pump right to the center of the crankshaft, or camshaft rather, and then from there it went up to lubricate the valve train on the cylinder heads. Of course, with the oils in the 60s and 50s, it'd kind of get gummed up. If people weren't changing their oil the way they should have, those would get plugged almost immediately. And then it would starve the top end of the engine, and that's where all the bad stuff happened. Later, Ford would remedy that by using external oil lines to lubricate the rockers, and that solved the problem. And nowadays, if you rebuild one of these engines, it's no problem. Just keep your oil clean, change it, and you'll have no trouble at all. But back in those days, it was an issue. Ford would go on to create the FE engine after the Y-Block, and of course that engine would be very successful and great too. So I'll get right to it. Let's get into some of the parts that we carry for these things. I'm going to start with numero uno on my list, my favorite, and that's these Ford ram horn exhaust manifolds. If you've been looking at these over my shoulder, you're probably thinking, let's get to it, Tim. I want to hear more about those. Well, these are great, and if you've been into Y-Blocks, you probably recognize these as the exhaust of choice. These are a wonderful piece because they look great and they flow about the same as a header. I mean, you just can't beat them. They don't have the under the hood heat issues that a header would, and they're a wonderful part that Ford produced in a stock form. Actually, these came out on 1961 to 1964 600 and above series trucks. So I know guys for a long time have been scavenging these things out of salvage yards. I had a lot of buddies that would take these off old school buses. What's really nice about these is they're not side specific. Right and left are exactly the same. So if you find just one, you can wait and find the other one later and you'll be just fine. Of course, these are getting harder and harder to find, and Bill Smith recognized that. So of course, we started creating these again, and these are built to be exactly as the originals were. A lot of people, when they call me, they'll say, Tim, I'm confused. And this is kind of a good point about these. Number one, customers love these things. When I sell them, you can go on the website and look at the feedback. I've had really good success with these. Folks really love them. But what commonly trips people up is they'll say, Tim, your center bolt is smaller than all the other ones. Well, that's the way the stock ones were too. When I tell people about installing these, and what I recommend they do is center it up on the middle bolt first. That puts all your ports where they need to be, and that bolt should be the first one you install. And then you work from the outside in and you'll be just fine. The reason Ford did that is for thermal expansion. When these things heat up and cool down, they got to have a place to move, and that's why those bolts have a little extra space in the hole there. So Wonderful piece. These are great, again, they're just like stock. You buy them as a pair from us. They come with the studs to install on the bottom where the exhaust flange goes. They come with the proper gaskets, and you can get them from us at any day of the week. They're wonderful and well worth the money. I think you're going to love them. A couple other little pieces that I brought. I brought some valve covers and also a valley cover. These valve covers are great. A lot of people are probably thinking, Tim, why didn't you bring your gnarly Offenhauser finned ones along? Well, today I wanted to do something different. I brought these chrome units because there are a lot of budget-minded people out there like me that just want to dress up their engine, make it look cool, but not break the bank. And that's where these valve covers really come in handy. They're really nicely chromed. Of course, I've got my oily fingerprints on them from working around engines all day, but these are wonderful. Highly recommend them, and you'll be shocked at the price on these. You can get them for a song and a dance, so really wonderful. The valley tray, of course, this thing's nice and heavy. It's ready to go right on your motor. You can polish this out, paint in between the fins, and you're going to make your engine look like a hot rod engine in no time. So really wonderful piece there. Of course, there are a lot of pieces that I didn't bring with me that we have for Y-block Fords. Everything from pistons and bearings to mag look distributors. I've got a lot of goodies for these engines. So give us a call. Check out our website, speedwaymotors.com. You'll find all the goodies there. You can call us anytime. Talk to our tech staff. We've got a great group of people that's here just to answer your questions. So you can ask me questions too, right here on Facebook or on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube page. I love talking about hot rods. I'm so glad you could stop by. And I'll see you again next time, everybody, and take care till then.